Hi everyone, thank you for watching Compass Guide videos. Please spread the word and share it among your friends and peers. It might help them. Today I am really privileged and honored because we have a very close friend of mine and also a very distinguished academician with me for a conversation on international students and Canada. And before I introduce her to all of you, just to give you a little bit of background, that she has been somebody who has been with the international student population, not only just as an international student, but also as a professor, associate professor with the University of Toronto and Ryerson Universities, two leading universities in Canada. And it's my privilege and honor to introduce Sutama Ghosh to all of you. Welcome, Sutama.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a privilege and honor, and thank you for your time. Especially with now, vaccination in full roll, summer like weather. I'm sure it is difficult to be in within in within the four walls that we have been for last 1.5 years. So thank you for taking your time. So to start with, Shodham, I was thinking that why don't you briefly talk about your own journey, right? Because you took a journey of an international student, and then you are in the center of this whole academic world. You are seeing international students very closely. So if you could just share your journey with the audience, I think that's where we start off.
Okay, I'll say this very briefly. So I came as an international student to Canada in 1999. At that time, when I was applying, most of the students went to the USA. So my parents, actually my father, because I didn't have, so anyway, my father basically told me, you have your choice. You should go to the US and give the GRE and all that. And because my brother was also in the US at that time, already established. So that was a easier connection. But at that time, I had some of my own political aspirations and dreams. So I thought, no, not the US. I'll either choose Canada or Australia. I chose Canada. And at that time, University of Toronto had a lot of clout like it has today. So I applied to U of T as well as York, and I got acceptance. And then at that time, what was interesting is that PhD students were funded by the university. So it was a fierce competition, but it was fully funded. So we were 4 international students accepted in whole of York University that year, and as PhD candidates, and I was one of them, and that was brilliant because I got to come on my own to a new country, etc. And the only reason I chose York over U of T was simply because York gave much more scholarship, and the universities actually competed against each other to get grad students. So I wasn't surprised. And after and York, honestly, I was one of the only Indian students in my entire geography department. So they didn't know much about India or Indian universities. But they did accept me with open arms, and I was very well trained, I think, because before I completed my PhD, I got hired at Urban Studies at York, and then from there on to U of T Scarborough. But when my daughter was born, of course, I was on mat leave, and then I went on to get a permanent position at Ryerson, and I've been there for 13 years. So in that way, I didn't actually have to struggle. So that's where I am. And then finally, while at Ryerson, I also got my faculty position at U of T. It's weird because while you are a faculty at Ryerson, based on your research, you can become a graduate faculty at U of T. So I'm only a graduate faculty. I don't teach in the undergrad department at U of T. So that's where I am.
No, I think congratulations, and I'm sure people who are planning to take Canada as one of their destinations for their kids, for parents who are aspiring their kids to come to Canada, and the kids who are planning, your journey would, I'm sure, would inspire people to really understand, what is the possibilities, like what are the possibilities to move on, and I think it's a perfect background to ask you the next question, which is, with the current landscape, with everything else going on across the world, why do you think international students should come to Canada? Why Canada?
Very, very important question. The reason, I would say, the first reason why they should come to Canada is because of lower tuition fees. So if you compare the tuition fees, and this is at the undergrad and at the grad level, between, say, USA, the UK, and Canada, Canada definitely has lower tuition fees. More importantly, international students, even though they do not have access to government scholarships anywhere, um, in the educational institutions, particularly universities and colleges, you can get bursaries still in Canada. And I say still because I don't know when this policy might change. The point is that once you are in a university, or once you are already in a college, then you should definitely apply for institutional scholarships. And if you have A only, like, I was one of them. I didn't have to even apply. They basically said, here's the money, study here. Because they want good students. So if you're a good student, then you should definitely apply for internal scholarships, which means your tuition fees will be less. So A, tuition fees are less in Canada. B, you can get even less tuition fees by applying for these bursaries. 3, if you are from a country like China, India, Brazil, or other like Colombia, Bangladesh, then or Pakistan, then there is an added advantage, particularly if you are applying within any university within the Greater Toronto area or even Ontario, or you're applying in British Columbia, or you're applying in, say, in the University of Calgary in Alberta. Why? Because the population sizes in these areas are pretty large. So you will not be alone. Remember, I just said that when I came, there were not many Indian students, and it is pretty isolating at that point. But this you will not face, particularly if you're applying in these big, large metropolitan areas. The last issue, and that is most important, I think, is that the possibility of transitioning from being a student into a permanent resident, the options are much higher in Canada. So it's not like the USA where you're a student, then you have to be a green card holder, meaning that you have to have a job which another American cannot have, which is very difficult. And from then you become a permanent resident, okay? And in the US policy, permanent residency is not a part of their policy. Whereas in Canada, one of the major policy decisions is that international students are expected to become Canadian citizens. The case in point being, just recently, the Minister of Immigration basically said that the international students are a panacea, or in other words, a medicine for the problem that they are facing with economic migrants whose qualifications are often not considered. So if you want to immigrate to Canada, then immigrating as an international student, having a Canadian degree would be great. So I would put down to those 3 points why you should come to Canada.
No, I think all the points are so relevant and important for for as a parent or as a student to pursue Canada, and we all know that it's such an inclusive society, and it also has so much to offer, right, from a country perspective. The other thing which I wanted to ask you, Sutama, and wanted your point is that what I hear when somebody is really in that phase of trying to understand that why Canada is the first question, right? So typically international students from Southeast Asia, South Asia, or even South America are obviously looking at Canada as one of their preferred destination. Then the second question that comes in is which college, which university, which program, what kind of study does it, and because they come from a very different culture, I think that's also a big question mark to really understand. And we all know that though the Canadian education system is very flexible and it lets you grow in the areas in which you really want, but unfortunately, people coming from the countries are not from that kind of a academic environment. So, what would be two or three things that you would recommend for the parents as well as the students who are aspiring to come to Canada, specifically the steps that they would need to choose the right program or the right field of study or the right college or the right university?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I think that I will answer this in two parts because I think it is important to for us to discern between people who come as undergrad, people who come as grad. So it's a completely different process. So I'm going to first talk about, and I'm assuming we are discussing about undergrads primarily. So let's discuss about the undergraduate students. So if you are coming from a country like the South Americas or you're coming from Asia, again, you cannot make generalizations because if you're coming from a country from the continent of South America, obviously, if you're coming from Brazil, you have different skill sets than those who are coming from Colombia, for instance. So I would say that for those people from those countries where English is not your official language, or even you haven't studied English, then of course English is one of the main issues, and therefore you have to realize that you need to choose a university in Canada, for example, which is francophone. So because why? Because Spanish and French are quite similar. I don't know. I'm not a French speaker, but this is what my research shows, that people who are non-English speaker but speaks another European language, going to a francophone university is better than going to an English university. Mind you, Ottawa U or University of Ottawa, or say, for example, there's a huge number of universities in Quebec offer French language instruction. So for those people, definitely go for those areas. But now coming to English-speaking countries, again, there's a huge difference between China and India. India, most people do know English because English is a part of our official language and a part of the curricula. So, it comes easily. So if we think, when we are thinking of people from India or China trying to come as undergraduate students, please note that IRCC, so in other words, Immigration and Refugee and Citizenship Canada, which is the Government of Canada web page, clearly states that the onus is on the student to know which agency they are going to go through. So the immigration agency or the education agency that you are taking advice from, the government has nothing to do with that agency, because the government actually does not say that this agency is good and this agency is bad. So the onus is on you. So what I would suggest, that you go through a reputed firm of your country and understand which agency is good or bad, okay? And there are lots of frauds that we know about, particularly because IELTS, which is an English as second language, which you have to write the test in order to apply to any Canadian university or college, sometimes the agency will tell, oh, you don't need that certificate. I will give you the certificate. Give me the money. Please don't go through those agencies, because ultimately your money will go and you will be at a loss. Thirdly, while you are in your country, talk to a good financial institution such as a bank, which then has some connections also to Toronto or to any place that you're immigrating to. Why? Because you will need bank transfers, and if you don't go through a proper bank, or you go through some kind of a informal financial institution, I would say not to do that. So these are three important things that again have emerged from my research, where I found that international students have found themselves in a huge lurch because they don't know what to do. They came here to find out that the college that they were going to does not even exist. The program doesn't even exist. So again, think through it. You are an undergraduate student. You should have go through a proper immigration agency, which then is backed by a financial institution such as a bank, a formal one, and you have that it is a reputed company, right? At the end of the day, in the undergraduate level, you generally cannot have a discussion with any faculty members because the faculty members are not responsible to take you in. If you are a graduate student, this is a completely different scenario. You have to first speak to the faculty member who will have some money, usually, some kind of funding. And then when they like you, when they accept you through your email correspondence, then the rest becomes very easy. Then you apply for your master's or PhD. The faculty has already supported you, so you come. So that's the graduate level process, which we all came through, and that was completely based on your relationship with the faculty who's accepting you. So the undergraduate is more of an institutional kind of a structure where you're dealing with all these various different people, whereas at the graduate level, it is a much more simpler process because it's one-on-one, and your research has to match. Again, I must stress that you have to be aware of the frauds out there. Don't take the shortcut. Go to the expos that are held in your university, in your college, like Kirorimal College, or Lady Shri Ram, they have in Delhi, for instance. Or if you're in Kolkata, in Presidency College, they always have these expos. Attend those expos. Those are actually legitimate places. And then from there, you can have a pathway.
No, I think so. It's so important. You touched on, we talk about so many other factors of, selecting the course, selecting the program. But I think what you touched upon is a very important piece, which is foundationally the very basic thing is that you definitely try to do research, understand, don't jump into people or agencies who are telling you or promising you shortcuts. Don't get surprised. And I would like to tell this to all the audiences that Sutama has done, other than her as a professor, her role as a professor, she's also into research and working with the government on international student behaviors. So her research, as she was mentioning, is looking at these pieces, and they are finding that more and more students are coming in and then facing a completely different scenario than what they expected. So I think it's a very, very interesting and important point. Moving to our last point, Sutama, that at the end of it, as we discussed in the beginning, that we all know that government of Canada looks at international students not only just from a student perspective, but also wants them to choose Canada as their future homes. And unlike some other countries, Canada International Student Journey actually can and is designed in a way that it results into permanent residency into this country. So, what would be what is the pathway, and what would be few things that people should be careful about, or be very aware of, that if that is where you want to go, then few things that you need to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think ultimately the goal of those who are, some of us, I'm not saying all of us, but some of us who are coming out of the countries that we were in to Canada, come with the hope that one day we will be permanent residents. But not everybody. If you want to go back, this is not your cup of tea. But always remember that even when you go back, it is important that you get some work experience, and that is absolutely essential. So again, I'm going to answer this question at the undergrad and the grad level. If you are an undergraduate student who wishes to then become a permanent resident, then of course you know the rule. You finish your course. After that, you apply for PGWP, which is postgraduate work permit. You work for 2 years, then you apply to become a permanent resident. Now, the focus of what I would suggest, and again, this is based on hardcore, as Shandip said, hardcore research findings, is that a lot of international students think that, okay, my parents have sent me here with so much money that they have taken as a loan. My main interest is to make that money and pay, the debt that my parents have taken. My advice would be, yes, of course, that's your responsibility, but your first responsibility has to be on the top of your class, finish the course. Don't deviate while you're an undergrad. Oh, I have to make money, so I have to send back the money. While it is important, I still strongly recommend that you keep to your 20 hours of work per week. Don't work more than that, and uh, of course, repaying and all that. If you are a grad student, then again, I would suggest that rather than looking for a job outside of the campus, try to find a research position with your supervisor, within the university. Doesn't have to be your supervisor, can be other people. Like, for example, I have a lot of students who are not necessarily my students but are working with me, and every professor needs this research team, and that way your resume looks very good, your CV looks very good. So with regards to so working while studying is a given. Once you finish that, you get your PGWP, and then you apply for your permanent residency. One another important element here is also that try to go out of your own community. Try not to mix. And I think, Shondeep, you have some videos on this. I think international students would really gain to understand why they should not confine themselves with friends from their group. The basic reason being that your friends are your source of information, networking. I think you should watch one of the videos that is produced by Compass, that why your networking should be beyond just your community, beyond just your group of friends, and what are the advantages and disadvantages, of course, of that. So I think those are the most important pathways, and always be in touch with the counselors in your college, in your university, to know what are you good at, what is your interest, and therefore what can you do. I will end my discussion with one thing, and that is, I think all of us should look at IRCC's list of occupation. Okay, it's called the occupation list. It clearly suggests what kind of jobs you'll get with a university degree versus a college degree versus a private college. Okay, please look at that website, educate yourself. And that will also actually returns back to our second question: how would you select, or what should you keep in mind when selecting where to study? So it clearly indicates that if you do a university degree, you will get a tier 1 job. If you do a degree from a college, community college, you'll get a tier 2 job. And if you're going in for these vocational quick fixes for one year degrees or 6-month degrees, then you'll get a tier 3 job. So make the choice and then don't regret it.
No, it's such an important point, Sutama, that you touched upon. Two things I think is very important, and as you mentioned that in our Compass Guide videos, I've tried to cover some of them. I think one piece that and this is I'm telling as a father of somebody who just graduated and getting into a graduate school. The this country is a specialist country, so the approach has to be like a specialist.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, try to do it good, because otherwise, this is not a country with a population of 500 million. It's a country of population of only 37 million.
Yeah.
So how good you are in what you do and what you love to do is very, very critical and important. And that's the reason why building a social capital, building your network is so important here. It's not just about studying, it's not just about working. It's about studying, while studying, working, and then while working, networking.
Yeah.
All these three has to happen together to bring this to a more successful piece. Now, thank you so very much, Sutama, for your time today. And to all our viewers, I hope you guys loved it. I loved it. And please keep watching Compass Guide videos and spread the word, as I say. Thank you for watching today and have a nice day. Thank you, Sutama.